This week on the awareness angle, the British Museum got attacked, MGM pays victims compensation, we go deep into DeepSeek, we answer another of Brian's questions, you tell us the most overused cyber terms, and I tell you all about a really bad password policy that I found. I am password policy shaming. All of this and a little bit more on this week's The Awareness Angle. That was good. I like that. Sorry, you're going to have to cut that. Or maybe you don't. Welcome to The Awareness Angle, simplifying cybersecurity awareness. This is the podcast that brings you the latest cybersecurity news from the past week and gives you the security awareness angle on it. All views and opinions expressed in this podcast are our own and do not reflect those of our employers. That's new. I thought I'd add that bit just to cover.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah. I started a new job this week. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'd have seen that I started a new job this week. So me and Luke now represent one half of the leading UK retail security awareness people. So, but different organisations. So, yes, it's been a big, crazy week for me. What's it been like for you, Luke?
Yeah, it's kind of similar, I guess. It feels like it's been ages, but then I sort of realised we no longer work together, so that's why.
Yeah, we talk to each other each and every day, and now it's like just the odd WhatsApp here or there. So it's quite strange.
Yeah,
but we'll always have the podcast, so that's good. That's good. Anyway, should we get on with the news?
Yeah, let's go into it.
Here's the news. So the first time today, the British Museum was hit by an alleged IT attack by an ex-worker. Now, I love this. I think there's so much to take away from this. So they were partially closed to visitors after a former employee allegedly shut down some of its IT network. This has got red team written all over it. It's got like operational handbook. There's so much you could use in this. The museum alleged that a contractor entered the building and accessed systems before being arrested. So it led to some galleries being closed on Friday. So that's not the Friday gone if you're listening to this. This is Friday before. And some temporary exhibitions remained closed. The man had been arrested and at the museum and bailed pending further inquiries. The IT contractor was dismissed and trespassed into the museum and shut down several systems.
Sounds like their physical security is not great.
It doesn't, does it?
Or like their hygiene with levers or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, maybe physical security is an issue. Doors left open, ID passes. It's
or social engineering his way back in.
Yeah. I forgot my pass. Will you let me in? I long wanted to do and never actually did it in the end properly. But I wanted to do a red team where someone tried to socially engineer their way into a building. And I wanted to film it. So I wanted hidden cameras and I wanted everyone to be able to, use that footage and obscure faces. So, and we talked about doing that and we had it all booked in. And it was booked in for like March the 22nd, 2020. And then COVID hit. And it was like, I'm afraid no one's going to be in the office, so we need to cancel. And then it never did it again. But that would have been awesome. So this is what's the takeaways from this? Do you think? Then give me a takeaway.
I mean, sort of at least in terms of for like an awareness thing, is definitely remind people about wearing their ID cards and challenging people and double checking, even if you know the person. Make sure they haven't been let go of the day before or left and then coming back to do that sort of thing. But who knows what the motive was, but yeah.
It's the workplace landscape at the moment is pretty bumpy in some places. There are small pockets of layoffs happening here and there in different organisations. The news cycle picks up on some. So you don't always know who's been involved in a round of redundancies.
Yeah.
They don't announce a list of names typically. So it would be quite normal for someone a week after being let go to turn up and go, "Oh, Luke, I forgot my pass. Can you just," or to like know another way in. So yeah, it's it's okay to challenge. If you see someone without an ID pass, it's okay to say no to tailgating, because people will try it and go, can you just wait, please? Can you scan? So,
yeah, I think as well, like something we've done recently is like a physical audit of like security. So definitely double check there's no back doors left open and propped open, that sort of thing.
Back doors in systems get their name from somewhere.
Oh, that as well, yeah.
If you've
Not even
locked down
physical,
all,
but
yeah, I mean, who knows, right? I don't know any more data on this. It's possible he could have like cloned an ID card or remotely accessed a door entry system. I don't know. But it wouldn't take a lot to get in somewhere with a bit of sweet talking and a bit of looking familiar and dressing the part. It's not difficult.
Yeah.
Right. Next news item is yours.
Yeah. So this is MGM agrees to pay $45 million to victims of 2019's data breach and 2023's ransomware attack. So that's, MGM Resorts have agreed to pay that to settle the multiple lawsuits against them related to those breaches. That's anybody affected by that apparently will receive, if they're in the first tier, I'm not sure, I guess that means on how much data of theirs was released or whatever, they'll get a whopping $75.
Rich.
The next tier, $50, and the tier after that, $20.
Wow.
And anybody that has further losses or identity theft can claim up to $15,000. But that was the breach of 2019. 10.6 million users who stayed at that resort was leaked on a hacking forum. And then the ransomware attack, which was affected their casinos, I guess, or within the hotels and stuff. So that's quite a big one.
Yeah.
And I think it was the Black Hat gang took credit for the ransomware attack. I'm not sure about the data breach, but
I believe they gained entry using voice phishing. So they socially engineered their way in to get some login credentials. And then they managed to escalate their privileges up to get to critical systems. So I believe the way in, I'm pretty sure, I think we did a news item or some awareness on it, but I'm sure at the time it was like literally front desk or reception or help desk, and it went in from there. So it's amazing the impact that, it depends who's on your front desk or your help desk staff, right? And the access they've given. It was a simple phishing call to the IT help desk snowballed into one of the most notorious ransomware attacks ever.
Okay. So it might have not been Black Hat Gang, it says here. Scattered Spider and Alf. Don't know how you say that one. ALPHV.
Oh, yeah. The actors, what was it? Social engineering attack allowed the threat actor to burrow into the MGM environment and establish a foothold. Due to password reuse, CyberArk Labs are currently under the impression that the attackers had usernames and passwords from previous breaches. With additional information collected from high-value LinkedIn profile, they hope to dupe the help desk into resetting the user's MFA token. And they were successful. Threat actors were also observed creating persistence in the MGM network by configuring an entirely additional identity provider in the Okta tenant using a feature called Inbound Federation. So they basically ripped them wide open and then had an absolute field day on their systems. So it was Black Cat Alpha ALPHV ransomware group was called in.
That's quite a big one. A lot of money. I think it's sort of goes to show the whole password reuse and accounts with certain permissions, and I guess sort of how easy it is for them to just level their way up through.
Yeah, multiple kind of stacked vulnerabilities and opportunities on top of each other. It's not just the front. Once they're in the front door, what else can we find? So,
exactly. They just search it all and see what they can get.
Yeah, all those many layers of security that you need, not just perimeter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the, like an awareness perspective on it, something I'm not going to take credit for, this is ChatGPT, but it's quite a nice term, phrase, which is cyber incidents are not just technical risks, they lead to massive financial and legal repercussions. And I think that sometimes that maybe gets forgotten, that it's just like, a technical problem, or never really think about the bigger picture sometimes.
I'm not being funny though. There's also like the brand reputation, like, and we had this a couple of weeks ago. So MGM, this happened in 2019, the data breach, and in 2023, the ransomware attack. We're now in 2025 and it's back in the news.
Yeah.
And we had this, there was something we talked about in an episode or two ago that was very similar. It might have been LastPass we talked about, and it was repercussions from the LastPass incident that happened how long ago? It's
these things never go away.
No. So, like most companies are going to suffer an incident at some point, but when that incident keeps coming back to continually like tarnish your reputation, it's so painful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That was the MGM one. Good news story. Some good action for that. Yeah.
And so the next story, another one of mine, which goes into the next sort of discussion point.
Yes.
Is, so this is a story where a researcher or business whiz, the business is called Whiz, uncovered and exposed a issue with DeepSeek's database where it's been leaking information and allowing access to databases that have chat history and whatever else. But we can probably go a bit into DeepSeek if you want to take that.
So if you haven't looked at the news for the past God knows how long, annoyingly, right, we record this on a Thursday night, and I think it was last Friday that DeepSeek hit the news and Nvidia's shares came crashing down and everything like that. Basically, DeepSeek is a Chinese AI company that has recently gained attention for its large language model, like OpenAI or Google's Bard or all of these things. That what made DeepSeek incredible was it's come from nowhere. It's incredibly cheap to manufacture and make it. It requires much less power than ChatGPT and stuff like that, which is why Nvidia's shares came crashing down, because you don't need all these graphics cards anymore. And the big kind of sticking point with DeepSeek is it is based in Hangzhou in China, and that's where its server estate lives. So all of a sudden, everyone's worried that anything they put into this is going to be consumed in China and live in China on servers. And obviously, everyone gets a bit itchy when countries like China, not China shaming at all, but when countries like China are storing our data, people get nervous about what's going to happen.
Especially if you're in the US, but we won't go into that.
Especially if you're in the US.
Named someone initials D and T, but
yeah, it was quite interesting because he saw this. Donald Trump publicly saw this as a big wake up call for the likes of Meta and OpenAI and people like that. But
I shared that story with you and thought it was AI generated.
Yeah,
this did not sound like him at all.
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? He's you shared that with me. You thought, is this AI? And I was like, no, because I've actually seen this reported in a reputable, news source. But the app for DeepSeek became the most downloaded free app on the US iOS store. And immediately people were concerned. Immediately, DeepSeek became a massive target of cyber attacks. They were DDoSed hugely, and then loads of people were trying to poke holes and try and get it to expose data. People did similar with...
Sorry, because it's open source as well, right? So people can sort of see its inner workings a little bit easier.
Yeah. The guy that created it was interviewed, and he said he doesn't want to be rich, but he doesn't want to be poor. Like there seems to be like, it's a really small team that's done it, and it seems to be like a real organic kind of We'll probably find out in 6 months' time that it's state backed and it's been worked on for years and it's completely stolen everything else and it's industrial espionage and James Bond will come in and yeah.
There were some stories about, OpenAI, I think, have challenged them to say that they trained on their model and stuff, but I guess until it's confirmed, it's all sort of trying to protect their OpenAI brand, I guess. But
yeah, what's important about this and why we're talking about it in some ways is because this has come from nowhere, right? And then all of a sudden, if you've got software, it doesn't even need to be software developers. If you've got technically curious people, they're going to be all over this, and companies start putting announcements out about please don't use it, please don't use it. And you might not have the technical controls to not allow people to use it, to restrict it. Definitely not everywhere. So we really, really need to make people aware of the risks of the data, because if you're putting technical stuff, if you're putting confidential stuff in there, if you're asking it questions that, are industrial secrets or intellectual property, anything you put in that, you might as well just say goodbye to. And it might mean that later on, you cannot defend your patents in court. You cannot protect your property, which means without IP, many companies aren't worth what they are, if they can't defend their IP. So, yeah.
Obviously, we can put this news story in for those who want to see the details, but overall, it's sort of just your standard database was left open for access, basically, and how misconfiguration can sort of do these sorts of things and expose data.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because this is reminiscent of TikTok in the fact that it's a Chinese-owned business. The data resides in China. And that means that it might not have a long shelf life in the US if Donald Trump decides he doesn't like TikTok and then decides he doesn't like this. So predictions, this might get blocked in the US, but that might not happen elsewhere, like Europe or the UK. You may find someone comes in and offers them stupid amounts of money because it's revolutionary, and then it ends up just being rebranded and disappears. But
locked down and not open source anymore. Well, it's too late for that.
Well, the thing is as well, you don't know. This is just DeepSeek, right? But supposing tomorrow, Shallow Find is launched. This has come from nowhere. No one really spoke about this before Christmas, and 4 weeks later, it's number one in the App Store. So we need to be prepared. This just goes to show that having a good culture and a safe culture and a culture of a secure culture in your business, one that does think before they act, is good to have. And this is another example of why that's important.
Yeah, I think as well, like with this tool, especially obviously because you can run it locally on your own servers and stuff, so the data obviously doesn't go anywhere but wherever you obviously.
I wasn't aware of that. But I wasn't aware that you could run it locally. That's amazing.
Yeah, but obviously, you might get some savvy people that spin up their own version of it and they start using it for work and think, oh, it's running locally on my system, it's okay. But so definitely getting that message out there.
You might end up with DeepSeek or DeepSeek with 3s instead of E's and stuff. So you might also get fake
rogue sites and apps.
Yeah. And then you end up with, copies of the large language model that say they're local, but are actually sending it all to a server in somewhere else, and it's, And then you might get custom built open source models pushed at developers in a certain business to be used at a way, we've seen like loaded GitHub repositories, and it might be like, if we upload this here, then developers might download it and we could pull a load of secrets from it. It's, Again, open, honest, clear communication with your business and a positive, safe culture is really, really important.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's it for news this week.
I did. You shared the Twitter, the tweet, X, formerly known as Twitter. The tweet that you saw, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, well, we can flash it up on screen and drop it in the newsletter.
It's amazing. I'll let you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't believe ChatGPT lost its job to AI. It's ha ha ha. Yeah. Right. Let's move on. That was the news. Okay. Last week we had a series of questions that had been asked to us from Brian Miller. Brian Miller's an awesome information security dude on LinkedIn. Follow him. He's posting regularly and it's all awesome commentary, which is great. We answered about communication and the challenges about communicating effectively. He's asked about the impact of poor collaboration between departments and how it creates barriers to effective security practices. So, poor collaboration between departments. I mean, it's really important that you have. If you've got anything you want to say on this, just interrupt me. By the way, I'm about to go off on a ramble, and it's really important. No, I won't. Don't worry. I'm watching the clock. It's really important that you have good ties with various technical teams across the business, and that you've got a seat at the table. If you're an awareness professional, I think it's important you have a seat at the table with many, many teams, because there's many, many different initiatives that come out that can involve behavioural change and need to be communicated. And quite often, the most effective and efficient communicators in a business will be the security awareness people, because they understand, or a good security awareness person would understand how to change behaviours and how to bring people along on that journey. They're probably the most effective storytellers. So I think about times in the past, there's been MFA rollouts where the MFA has changed from, SMS to six figures, and then evolved again at a later date from six figures to number matching. And those are things that awareness team helped communicate and helped cooperate. If you don't do that, then the communication is muddy, the communication isn't clear, or there's no communication and people are left in the wild. I think we saw a lot of that when ChatGPT and AI came from nowhere overnight a couple of years ago. Companies didn't know what to say or what their position was. So a lot of businesses would have gone blind and users are just there scrabbling around doing what they want because no one said I can't. So I'm just going to start playing. And then all of a sudden, oh no, don't. And it's like, but why don't? They want to play. They're obviously curious. If you employ, a lot of businesses will employ developers and savvy IT people partially because they're curious and they like to make cool stuff. So if something new comes on, of course they're going to want to play with it. So it's important that us as communicators and awareness people clearly communicate that change. So make sure you've got a seat at the table, build those relationships with other people. And not everyone that works in IT, not everyone that works in different departments will want to be friends. They might see you as a gatekeeper. So it's important that you do what you can to offer them support, help them, and help communicate with them that you're helping them, I suppose. We've done the same. Like, we used to help comms team out with technical messages. We helped teams out launching stuff. They come to us for various different things. And I think that's really, really, really important. You show that you support them on that journey.
No, yeah. I couldn't have said it any better.
Do you think I've covered everything?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I think a lot of times people outside of awareness teams don't think about that they actually should be saying something or saying it this way or informing people.
So often no one's thought about how it would be received by the end user.
Yeah.
And quite often it would be us that would do that. And I think that's...
Or you pick up the pieces.
I'm not naming and shaming any organisations. I think it happens everywhere.
Yeah.
Technical people are so lost in the detail about how they build it and how it works that they just don't think about how it will be received or perceived by the humans that are impacted by it.
I mean, I guess it's sort of often the last step, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Maybe forget about that part of it. But,
yeah. Yeah, I think it's really easy to just turn up on a Monday morning and things have changed. And then people are like, why have things changed? You know, it could be a sign-in screen or a login screen or a workflow or the process to do this has changed.
Yeah. Just on that, I think it's definitely informing people a few times, at least probably twice prior, that something's going to be changing.
Yeah.
Before it's done.
I think that's so important, rather than just announcing on a Friday, going Monday morning, blah 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 blah. You know, coming soon, the way you log in will change. Soon, the sign-in page will change. At the beginning of March, the sign-in page will change. Next week, the sign-in page will. There's nothing wrong with like building. If it's going to impact people, just give them. It doesn't need to be a lot, but just give them a warning that it's coming. Mention it on a town hall. Mention it in a stand-up. Send a little memo out to team leaders to mention it in their sprint. You know, that kind of thing. Just get the word out there. If you've got Champions Network, let them know, and they can let everyone know.
Yeah, definitely.
We've got a couple more questions for Brian. We'll cover the next one next week. So, Brian, thank you very much for your questions. If you've got a question for the podcast, you've got a question for me or Luke or for the community that we can maybe get answered for you, pop us an email over hello@riskycreative.com. And let's, have I mentioned the newsletter? Yeah, I haven't, have I?
Not yet.
I say that every week knowing I haven't mentioned the newsletter. We have a newsletter that goes along with every single episode. It comes out on a Monday morning. Each episode comes out on a Monday morning. In the newsletter, which we send by email and by LinkedIn, we tell you everything that happens in this episode. We give you the awareness angle on it. So if you haven't got time to listen, you can read. And if you haven't got time to read, you can listen. So sign up for that at riskycreative.com or find me on LinkedIn and you'll find the newsletter. Right. Next, this one was quite fun. For a second, I was scared this wasn't going to work, but it worked. Okay. So we had a comment a couple of weeks ago on YouTube. So you can find, if you're listening to this on your podcast app, you can find it on YouTube as well. And you get to see our beautiful faces. If you're watching us on YouTube and you don't want to look at us, then you can find us on podcast platforms as well. I asked on LinkedIn, so hit my post, does human firewall give you the ick? Talking about the phrase human firewall. What do you think is the most overused cybersecurity term? Is there a term that you hate, that you're sick of? Answer on the back of a postcard or in the comments, and I'll give you a mention on the podcast if you so wish. Well, no one said they don't want to mention on the podcast, so we'll just go with this. Okay, it's all on LinkedIn. It's all public. If you don't want to mention on the podcast, it's too late. So Ross, co-founder and CEO at Mirage Security. Hi, Ross. Said humans aren't risks to be managed, and behaviour change sounds like a psychological experiment. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. We should probably mention that these are their own views and not their businesses that they represent.
Yes, of course, as with any social media or LinkedIn. Absolutely. So, yeah, I always think of human risks as risks faced by humans rather than the risks posed by humans. So Jeanette says that. 100% the term has been ruined by the marketing around human risk management, which is kind of, yeah, I kind of get that. John, or risks where human can influence the outcome. I think that's quite interesting. Sarah Janes from Layer 8. If you weren't aware, Layer 8 are security champions experts, and I'm actually on a Layer 8 webinar in a couple of weeks. Details of that can be found in the newsletter or on my LinkedIn. Sarah says she's not over keen on human firewall or human risk management, but she thinks they have good meaning. I never really thought of this. To be honest, the word human kind of gives me the ick when speaking about people. Don't know about you, but I tend to just call them people. Feels and sounds much more natural. I kind of get that. Humans kind of biological, scientific.
Yeah, it's very technical, isn't it?
It is. It is, isn't it?
Machine, they're humans.
Yeah, I think that's, we don't talk about people risk. The minute you say people risk, you start thinking HR. But it's a really good point Sarah makes. It doesn't really have much personality or, I like that.
That one there by Melanie.
Totally agree. People are people. They're not users. This is an ick term for me. It dehumanizes people, their emotions and behaviors, all the things us security awareness people need to understand. Now, this is difficult because when I agree, right? But is there a place for users? Like when you're talking about, I'm just about to use the word people when I could have used users. When you're talking about how many users clicked a phishing email or how many users you have in a system, maybe there's a technical term.
Yeah.
People, we don't call it a people name. We call it a username. But
yeah, it has its uses, like its
time and a place.
Yeah, but definitely, yeah, that's what I don't like as well as the reference of people as being users. Feels very like they're just a human that does work on a computer.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Yeah, it's kind of, it's not a very positive term, is it? Ali's got this is like not so much a phrase as an image. The faceless hoodie with matrix text behind it. Absolutely 100% needs to die. I've banned every variation from it, from every campaign I've ever worked on. It absolutely drives me up the wall. Now, hackers in hoodies, I've used, right? We've used. Matrix text, kind of used, I think, sparingly. We have. But kind of tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
We, like, leading with that, I think I did some awareness videos like 9 years ago that had, like, hacker hoodies in. I remember SANS training, like, 10 years ago. Used to have, like, cyborgs in it, right? We did some Lego animation that was, like, real. It was like a Lego movie. They were awesome. They were, like, tongue-in-cheek. But they like had a like script kiddie hacker at a computer with Matrix. But that's tongue in cheek, right? That's kind of playing into that thing. I know a very, very large organization that also won't allow anything like that anywhere because it just doesn't work. So yeah. Thank you, the Wachowski brothers and Keanu Reeves for your endless Matrix-like text. The weakest link. Jeanette says the weakest link makes me want to stab myself in the eye every time I see it. Humans are the weakest link. Yeah. Humans are the weakest link. It's like a double barrel. Surely if a risk has got through the technology, then that was weaker. I'm with you on the dislike of this. I mean, that's a fair point, right? If the humans clicked on a link, the technology is obviously weaker for allowing that infection in. Human firewall absolutely gives me the ick, says Lisa, which is, spot on. David, yes, when people say human firewall, it suggests static binary blocking, but humans are anything but static. Firewalls rely on rigid rules to protect networks. People rely on systems, judgment, and intuition to protect identity. A firewall can be misconfigured, but can't be socially engineered. Humans can be tricked, but can't be bound by rigid rules. So yes, human firewall definitely gives me the ick. I'd rather call us the adaptive immune system because we might catch a virus, but we can adapt and come back stronger.
That's amazing.
I think if he wrote a book, I think I'd read it. That's. I was engaged with that whole. David, if you write a book, I will happily narrate it. I'll narrate the audio book quite happily. I think that's perfect. People say human firewall. Yep, suggest static, binary, block it. A wall is like static, right? A firewall is, bound by rules. Someone's going to go, but there's an adaptive firewall. In which case, it's like, it's
an AI
maybe that's
firewall.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's spot on. Hayden is at KnowBe4, I think. Overused. especially by marketing. But I believe terms like this exist because of where the blame gets placed, which is always on the human. If a user clicks on a malicious link, that means every other system you have in place also failed to detect the threat. Most organisations spend 75% or more of their IT budget on tech solutions and less than 5% on end-user training. But the humans take all the blame. Oh, my God. Hallelujah. Like, organisations that have, like, massive engineering teams, massive SOC teams, massive, like, GRC functions, but then have tiny awareness teams.
Yeah.
But, like, and the annoying thing is, and this is why it's mad, is you can spend £1 million on a EDR solution or something. I don't know if an EDR solution is £1 million. I don't know. But you can spend thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds on an EDR system. But then companies will begrudgingly pay for a human risk management system. I called it human risk management. I don't know what else to call it. It's been coined. Or a phishing platform or stuff like that. It's yeah, it is a bit backwards, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Robin says, I'm yet to hear why human firewall actually gets on people's nerves. Similar to other commenters' point, most people know what a firewall is. To keep out the nasties, conceptualizing a human version of it as an analogy for the protection as well as informed workforce can provide, I think, works quite well. I wonder if many cyber folks who are given the ick by the term have ever stopped to ask what everyone else thinks of it. As my own terminology peeves, I have to say MSSP. I'm seeing it everywhere at the moment, and it comes off less like the structured, continuous, managed, with you every step of the way offering that is sold, and more like a we'll be giving our attention to whoever shouts the loudest. The other non-cyber specific but used a lot term would be thought leader. We already had a word for that, expert. It's both shorter to write and say. Why did we all of a sudden start talking like senior managers at McKinsey? Thought leader. I love that. Yeah. So this caused a little bit of controversy. There was 6 replies, which for a post that I post on LinkedIn is fairly good. For me, I think we overestimate the understanding of non-techies onto what a firewall is. It's a bit dehumanizing. I kind of get that, right? Does Dave in accounts or Karen in HR know what a firewall is if you use the phrase human firewall? So maybe there is a place for it and a place not for it. If humans are dealing with a security risk, it suggests the firewall didn't actually work and a different approach is required. An approach that is more flexible and dynamic than a firewall config, a human approach. Yeah, much like the imagery of a faceless hacker in a hoodie, another trope I have thoughts of. I'm not sure dehumanizing a person into a technology is as engaging. It's a good point. Yeah, there's more controversial comments on that you can read. We'll share a link to that in the newsletter. Melanie came back and said, words that give me the shivers: users, human firewall, best defense, weakest link, stupid, circle back, deep dive. I think I used deep dive into DeepSeek right at the beginning of this. I think that was one of my opening lives. So I'm sorry, Melanie, if you are listening. You might not be. You might have turned off after like 8 seconds. Paul Armstrong says, I don't dislike human firewall. It's accessible and easily understood, as most people know something, however small, about tech firewalls. But the weakest link in cybersecurity, that one really grates on me. It oversimplifies the human element and shifts blame instead of focusing on empowerment. I agree. The weakest link isn't. I don't think that's
horrible.
No one's going to like. It's not something. If you want,
I'm going to do better. I'm the weakest link.
It's not a supportive term, is it? It's like pointing a finger, going, "You clicked on a link." That's not. It's not putting an arm around them and offering them support. Steve says, I have a real issue when people say you can't patch for stupidity. If your colleagues are not following relevant training, then you need to address how or what you're training, not assume your colleagues are stupid. It's a failing in training, not the person being trained. And John Scott's just started his own security consultancy, Wild Park. If you're looking for any security awareness help or advice, John is probably your man. He's not paid for that plug. That's just me going completely off canvas. So if I've got it wrong, John, Sorry. John says, absolutely. Training and education are very specifically patches that are very specific patches that we've developed over thousands of years to patch ignorance. If your patch doesn't fix a problem, your patch is at fault. I think that's really quite true. If the training and education doesn't educate in the right way, then that's the fault of the training.
There's a problem there.
Yeah. But this is the problem with training, right? And I'm a massive advocate. Training, there's so many training companies out there, and they're all going to hate me for saying this. Most training doesn't work, right? Most training rhymes with draining because training is draining. Training now, I think, and the model that I would, if I was in charge, I'd ditch training. Training is a tick box exercise and a compliant exercise all day long, but you need to continually educate and engage with users about secure behaviors. It's not a training thing. It is an education thing, but it's an engagement thing. You need security engagement. And how you do that with your function, you need to engage your users frequently and often in an interesting way. That's what you need to do. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Thank you. Right. So that was, thank you to everyone that commented on that post. If you want to add to it, it's on LinkedIn. We'll put it in the newsletter. And keep an eye out, follow me and Luke on LinkedIn, because we'll do stuff like this more often. We'll ask you guys for community feedback and we'll share it in the show. That's really useful. Thank you. Yeah. Comment section. So we had last week we did our AI. We looked at the AI tools that Maxime Cartier from Hoxhunt had shared, and one was called Suno. Straight away, I've got a problem with that because I called it Sumo earlier, or I've got a problem with the name. Sonar, I think I thought it was SONA, but anyway, Suno's amazing. We created a theme tune. We gave it a very short prompt, and it made this whole song. You can catch it on our YouTube, and in last week's episode, we put the full version on YouTube. And it's awesome. And, Anthony, it says about Anthony and Luke sharing cybersecurity stories every week on the Awareness Angle podcast. And there's a whole, it's like 3 minutes of electro.
We'll have to get on Spotify, maybe make a little playlist.
maybe.
If we're allowed to.
Yeah.
Just to check the,
we'll have to check the T's and C's. Anyway, Steph's on YouTube said, I just discovered Suno last week and I'm addicted. This slaps. So, never know. Christmas number one?
Yeah.
Awareness Angle? Who knows? I had just a couple more things to talk about this week, and then I think we're done. So I wanted to mention the Layer 8 webinar. I mentioned it a little bit briefly when I read Sarah's comment, but if you have security champions, if you're listening to this, within the first week or two of it going live, if you have a security champions initiative, you want the security champions initiative, or you've maybe thought about it and didn't know where to start, then on the 13th of February, I am co-hosting a webinar. It's a champions meetup hosted by Layer 8. Layer 8 are the security champions experts. They've done work with us. They've analysed security champions initiatives, and the results have been awesome. So I'm a guest speaker on this webinar, and we're going to talk about the 6 critical success factors of a great security champions program. It's on the 13th of February. You can get the details in the show notes. You can get the details in the newsletter, or you can get the details on my LinkedIn. Right. The last thing I want to show you this week, someone I know is employed, and I'm going to name and shame, right? I shouldn't really do. No, I'm going to name and shame. If I've said this and then it's bleeped out, that's because Luke's talked me out of it in the post production. Hertfordshire County Council in the UK, Hertfordshire County Council have a payment portal for Hertfordshire County Council employees. It's called ePay. So it has 2-factor authentication, and it has a very secure password policy, which is great. Set it up with an authenticator app. Lovely. But then we come to what happens when you can't use your authenticator app. It asks you for 3 security questions. Now, there's some things to be applauded here, but there's one thing that really caused its failure. You can, so before you reset your 3 secret questions, you have to enter your password, which is brilliant. Well done. Mm-hmm. You can specify your own questions. Now that's awesome, right? It says mother's maiden name there. If you're looking at the screen, you can see mother's maiden name there. That's awesome. The fact you can specify your own questions, because it doesn't just go first pet, name of first school, mother's maiden name. So that's cool. So, name of first pet. Luke, have you ever had a pet? You've got a pet.
Yeah.
Have you had is that your first pet you've got now, or what was the name?
I mean, first to me, I guess, if you say it in that way, but the answer would be less than 6 characters.
That's the problem. That's the problem. So my first pet was 6 characters. This person's first pet, 5 characters.
Yeah.
Right. And it does pre-populate. So it does pre-populate name of, so I think it was mother's maiden name and name of first pet were 2 of the questions that this person couldn't remember. Mother's maiden name, 4 letters. So what do you do? Noel names, my surname is 5 letters.
Yeah.
And then you're like, did I put an exclamation mark at the end, or did I put a 1 at the end? What? And then it's like, the other question, which was obviously set at some point, was nickname of first car.
Right.
That was Betty. Again, 5 characters. So what is yeah, it's in principle, there's a lot of things right here, and I get why the 6 character security answer is there. Maybe you're just meant to think of a more secure question, or it makes you think of a different question, but then you're in the realms of the person's not going to remember the question. Yeah. And in their defense, if you got it wrong, it then cycled to another question, and then it cycled to another question. And it didn't appear to have any account lockout. And in fact, I know it didn't have any account lockout because it just cycled multiple times whilst multiple So there didn't appear to be 3 strikes you're out, or maybe there was some proper brute force protection. But yeah, so ePay, Hertfordshire County Council, it's great, but no cigar, yeah? You nearly got there, but 6 characters for a security answer, yeah. And that's the problem. You will end up thinking, I'm just going to put, what was the name of my, I don't know, 4th cousin twice removed? And then, I suppose you'll always remember that. Oh, what did I have for dinner last night? Ugh. Just to get an answer in there or something. So
yeah, it'll either be then weak, or you'll have to reset it when you come to try and use it.
Yeah.
You'll have to reach out to them if you haven't already and let them know that their thing needs fixing.
I'm sure it won't. I'm sure nothing will change. Maybe I should, just to see. I have named you on Costa Rica's number 2 tech news podcast.
Yeah. Hope it doesn't get the episode taken down.
Hopefully not. I think that's pretty much it for this week. Did you have anything else you wanted to say or do?
No, I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good one. Yeah.
Please like and subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave us a review, leave us a comment. It all really, really helps. We are currently, as of recording this Thursday night, the number 7th tech news podcast in Costa Rica, the number 14th in Austria and Poland, 49th in Finland, and 50 in Norway. We're really loving the reaction we're getting. We want to get bigger and bigger. Episode 11, man. Many podcasts don't get this far. So
it feels like such a long time ago.
It does, doesn't it? It's this is just like a normal fixture of the week now, which is great. I can't do that on a Thursday night. I'm doing the podcast. And it's like, it's part of the routine now, which is brilliant. So
yeah, no, it's been really good.
So thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Sign up for the newsletter at riskycreative.com or on LinkedIn. If there's anything you want us to talk about, want us to cover, please get in touch. hello@riskycreative.com. Let's make security awareness simple, relatable, and something you actually look forward to. Luke, good luck. I won't. Normally, I'd speak to you tomorrow.
Is this the last podcast already?
Normally, it'd be like, see you at work tomorrow, but it's not like that anymore. So good luck at work, and see you next week.
Yeah, and you too. Thank you for the episode. It was good fun.
That was fun. Thank you. See you later.